Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily News. I'm Nicholas Richardson. Washington, D.C. This is where the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's Jubilee Summit begins, as NATO celebrates its 75th anniversary this year. After the victorious Cold War, the leaders of NATO member states seem to slumber in contentment. After all, no war threatened us. However, Putin decided to wake them up. In 2008, he attacked Georgia. In 2014, Putin's men stole Crimea from Ukraine. And 2.5 years ago, Putin's Russia launched a bandit war in Ukraine that could lead to another world war. Our special correspondent, Alexander Wiejewski, is in Washington, D.C. Representatives from the 32 member countries of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization are arriving in Washington for the Alliance's 75th anniversary summit. For the first time, there will be representatives from Finland, Sweden, and, of course, the Indo-Pacific partners. This is the third such summit to be held in the shadow of the Russian aggression against Ukraine. So, of course, the President of Ukraine is also here. Support for Ukraine will be a topic of much discussion, and indeed a key issue for the North Atlantic Alliance. The Jubilee Summit in Washington is the last such event for outgoing NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg. The most successful military alliance in human history. In 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty was signed by 12 countries. Today, NATO's members include 32 countries and 35 leaders of other countries. One of the main topics at the three-day North Atlantic Treaty Organization Summit, which begins today, is the issue of defense spending by alliance members.
We will also make decisions for the future on deterrence and defense, ensuring that we have the forces, the readiness, the capabilities we need to continue to deter any aggressor, and also ensure that allies continue to carry their fair share of the burden.
At previous NATO summits, it was agreed that alliance members should spend at least 2% of GDP on defense each year. According to the latest figures, after the admission of Finland and Sweden, 23 of the 32 member states do spend such a percentage of GDP on defense. The German military can assume that in the coming years we will always keep our pledge to NATO, amounting to 2% of GDP. Another issue is the continuation of support for Ukraine, attacked by Russia, and the strengthening of the alliance's defences in the east. Polish President Andrzej Duda is calling for NATO countries to raise spending on joint defence to 3% of GDP, so that the pact's eastern flank may be strengthened. Above all, this summit must be another step towards strengthening our security, both in the immediate sense and in the sense of our security for the future. That's why in Washington, NATO heads of state are expected to work on the implementation of regional plans following the enlargement to include 2 new members.
Finland has a very long land border with Russia that requires NATO to update its operational plans for the defense of NATO territory, including Finland and Estonia and other countries that either border Russia, border Belarus, which is an ally of Russia.
Even before the start of the meeting in Washington, there was talk that NATO, fully to implement its new defence plans in the event of a Russian attack, would need additional brigades of troops and reinforce air defences. The issue of the growing rivalry with China in the Pacific is also expected to come up at the summit.
The summit will deepen our extraordinary transatlantic bond and strengthen our shared security. I know that President Biden is proud to host this summit, and he looks forward to marking our historic achievements with leaders from our now 32 NATO allies. We've made outstanding progress in strengthening our deterrence and defense. We built on our progress from previous summits, and we've shown the world that NATO is stronger, larger, and more united than ever before.
It is not without reason that the third summit since the start of Russia's full-scale aggression against Ukraine is already being referred to as an ammunition summit. It is also about rebuilding the capabilities of the arms industry, which has been downsizing over the past few years, strengthening defence potential, including building new units, especially saturating the areas most at risk, meaning the eastern flank, with these new units. Unofficially, for the Polish delegation, an important issue, among others, is the position of commando of the NATO combined forces in the Netherlands for the Polish representative who will coordinate the defence of the pact's eastern flank. Radosław Jankiewicz, TV Republika. Yesterday's attack on a children's hospital in Kiev is one of the many pieces of evidence of Russian crimes. Crimes that began from the first days of the Russian invasion. Russian barbarians have taken innocent people, residents of cities and villages, as their targets. The scale of their crimes is striking. They sought help for their children as Russian bombs fell on them. Putin's barbarians have once again chosen to target the defenseless, children and their parents. This is the moment of the attack. What remains of Kiev's Children's Hospital, the largest in Ukraine, is but rubble, and rescuers are still finding more bodies underneath. At least 13 children were killed in yesterday's attacks on Kiev. Volodymyr, his wife, and their little son have miraculously escaped with their lives. My son and I arrived at the hospital and suddenly there was an explosion. We fled to a shelter. Our car was hit, but we are alive. I do not have the words to say what I feel. This is the 867th day of the war, and each one is marked by Russian war crimes. The streets of Bucha, Borodyanka, Irpenia. These photographs will forever remain evidence of genocide. Ordinary people with their hands tied, killed by a shot to the back of their head, in their own backyards, in their own towns. Destruction, fear, and death add to that hunger and hopelessness. Those who survived the crimes of the Russians still have to hide from the enemy. We have shown you the drama of ordinary people in TV Republica's reports from Ukraine. We have been living in a basement for 6 months. We are waiting for a room. What is all of this for? We are peaceful people. Why? Mariupol, one of the symbols of Ukrainian resistance and Russian barbarism. Bakhmut, once a city of roses, now a city of ruins. Houses, schools, hospitals, all razed to the ground. Before the Russian invasion, 70,000 people lived here. These are war crimes, crimes of genocide. Look what is happening. They are killing people, raping women, torturing men. This is genocide. These Russian criminals have no mercy, especially for the defenseless. They came at night. I was shaking all over. They took my husband and said, "You do what we want or you die." Then they raped me. These barbarians are separating families, taking the youngest children deep into Russia. They're also kidnapping children from orphanages and even schools and kindergartens. Destroyed Ukrainian towns and villages show the scale of the Russian barbarism. Take Lisa, a 4-year-old girl with Down syndrome. She was walking with her mother to her speech therapist when they were hit by rocket shrapnel. Lisa died on the spot, and her mother was seriously injured. We looked up, and there was a rocket flying over us. That's when I knew it was over. A moment later, there was an explosion. The whole city cried at the girl's funeral. Her story, like all Russian crimes, will not be forgotten. Marcin Shevchak, TV Republica.
The police took their time to react, so they removed the activists from the road themselves. Now these Warsaw drivers will have to face the consequences, including criminal ones. The police warn that similar situations will not be tolerated and promise to prosecute anyone who lets themselves be provoked by the activists. Earlier, the police had issued a similar warning in defense of illegal immigrants.
Action and reaction. This is how these drivers from Warsaw took matters into their own hands. I am glued. Please do not touch me. Get out of here. And remove the climate activists. They're ripping people away. It hurts. It hurts. Well then, take his pants off. He's not stuck. Blocking one of the main roads. Hi, my name is Mishka. I am 26 years old. I have just been sprayed with pepper spray by a driver because I am worried about what will happen when we run out of water. Mishka is an activist with the group Last Generation. This is an organization that a German court recently declared to be an organized criminal group that aims to break the law. In Poland, however, Last Generation can count on the protection of state institutions, according to an official communique from the capital's police. There is no agreement on the part of the police for anyone to break the law. Therefore, those who attack the activists in Czerniakowska Street in Warsaw today must also face criminal responsibility. The activists will also have to stand trial, although it is not yet clear whether these will be criminal or civil cases. This is yet another case in which the police are clearly standing up for people who disturb the peace and sense of security of Poles. Earlier, police headquarters made a similar announcement about migrants. Reports of mistreatment of migrants appearing in the media should be reported to law enforcement authorities, not reproduced. Combating hate crimes is one of the priorities of the Polish police, and appropriate action is taken in every such situation. It is not acceptable to break the law and spread hatred. However, European statistics show that it is the illegal immigrants who are far more likely to break the law than native-born Europeans. None of this gives the impression of a desire to maintain social order, but rather resembles the situation we face in Western Europe, where it is actually difficult to speak of equal rights. Illegal immigration and the European Union's climate policy have two things in common: the support of the political elite and increasingly violent protest by citizens. Konrad Wąż, TV Republika.
Early today, hundreds of revelers took part in the third running of the bulls as part of the San Fermin festival. The festival is a week-long traditional celebration held annually in the city of Pamplona in Spain. Unfortunately, 2 people were injured during the event.
The 2 injured were transported to the Navarra University Hospital. The runs, during which 6 purpose-bred fighting bulls, guided by 6 steers, chase runners through the narrow streets of Pamplona's Old Quarter, covered a stretch of 800 meters or 0.5 miles.
It was insane. We were just took on this corner. We saw a few, like the bulls came flying through. We got a bit stuck on it. I threw myself over the rail. I got scared. My mates are in the stadium. They're better than me. So yeah, no, it's heaps of fun.
It's been a rather nice bulls run, really. Lately, the steers have been opening up some really good spaces, and there were more people than yesterday. So, well, another nice run. We're satisfied. This year, the livestock farm presented 8 bulls in Pamplona, weighing between 500 and 630 kilos. Pamplona City Council stated that minors under 18 years old were not allowed to participate in the run.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. And from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.